Hello, I'm Franzeska Ewart, and I'm going to talk about my adult book, The Faraway. I was a children's writer for many years, nearly 30 years, and about 10 years ago I decided that if I didn't write the adult novel now, I never would. So I started. After all these years of writing for children, I was not prepared for how difficult it was to write an adult book, and it took me nearly 7 years. So I'm going to, first of all, just read you the blurb, and that gives you a wee indication of what it's about. Selina Wilde longs to leave behind her world of picture book illustrating to become a serious artist. But a childhood memory, half remembered yet deeply sinister, fills her with guilt. She's petrified to move on. As her career and marriage fall apart, this nameless fear threatens to destroy her. She knows the only way to be free and fulfilled is to search for the truth behind it. Her search takes her from London to the volcanic island of Graciosa off Lanzarote, and in this desert far away, new friendships deepen and she discovers a self she didn't know existed. She also discovers the truth at the heart of her childhood memory. It could hardly be more unexpected or more life-changing. So, Selina was a children's illustrator as I was a children's writer, and I think there was always that part of me that wanted to be kind of taken seriously in the adult world, but with Selina there was a big problem. But to research the second part of the book, which takes place on Graciosa, which is a very beautiful island off the north coast of Lanzarote, I took many trips there, and I began to paint again after 35 years of not. And the first pictures that I painted were of the island that was fascinating me so much. And I painted fairly traditional scenes of particularly this view, which is from the island back to Lanzarote. That's the coastline of Lanzarote. It's called the Famara Cliffs. And this one is, again, just one of my first attempts at doing any landscape painting. This is the trip that you take to get to this. This is Graciosa itself, and you have to go around this point, and it's a really rocky ride. After I had finished the book, I decided to, well, I was enjoying painting so much actually that I wanted to go on painting, and I thought I would paint some of the main parts of the book. And so I've taken 3 of these paintings to talk about, and that also gives you a wee idea of how the plot thickens. The first painting, you see Selina, and she's right at the beginning of the book. She is basically on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She's just, her whole world has exploded or imploded round her for a whole lot of different reasons. And the night before this scene, it's called In the Bluebird Cafe, she's been trying to finish this centre spread for one of the many children's books that she has to illustrate, and it has not gone well, and she knows that this illustration is really not her best work. Selina is a very well known illustrator. She works for a big London publisher, and she's expected to have really top-notch illustrations, and this is not one. So you can see from the expression on Selina's face and the way she's holding the painting as though she really wants to drop it, that she knows it's not her best work, and it's not going to please her editor whom she's meeting. But as a result of this meeting in the Bluebird Cafe, her editor suggests that she might see a therapist. And of course, this is appalling to Selina. There's no way she's going to go and see a therapist. However, the editor persuades her, let's say she persuades her in a certain way to see a therapist, and she does. And that really is the start of Selina's journey, to understand why she is letting opportunities pass and not fulfilling the potential that she feels she has. Now, in the second part of the book, this is all part one takes place in London, and in the second part, she goes to Graciosa, and when she's there, she has various adventures, but she's also really trying to establish a style of her own. Her mother was a very famous artist, and Selina has lived in the shadow of her mother all her life. The mother has now died, and it's as though now Selina can begin to breathe and be her own artist. However, the paintings that she paints at first are very similar to the ones that her mother painted. And you can see again from this painting that that's not pleasing her. This is not what she wants to do. She doesn't want to imitate. She wants to find her own style. The third painting is actually the cover of the book, and it's called Pedro Barba Sky. The volcano in the background is called Pedro Barba. Basically, there's 3 volcanoes on Graciosa, but Pedro Barba is particularly special in the story, and it's a particularly beautiful striated volcano. And in this painting, she's holding a painting which is tending towards surrealism or fantasy art. You see a woman floating through the clouds. This is another artist that she has met, who she's formed a very intimate friendship with. And she's beginning to see how she might go forward. This view of Pedro Barba is a particularly important view on the island, because Selina discovered on her mother's death that secretly her mother had a house and a studio on Graciosa, and that was her secret Faraway. Imogen's house was called the Casa de la Luna Creciente, which means the house of the crescent moon. And every morning, this is the view that she would see from her window. And she, unbeknown, of course, to Selina, this was the source of many, many paintings that her mother did and which hang in her mother's flat. In travelling and over to the island and finding the studio, Selina has the idea that she might find out more about her mother, whom really she didn't know. They were always at loggerheads. But there's another thing that she begins to wonder. She has never ever known her father. There's always been a mystery surrounding her father. She knows his name was Francisco, and that's really all she knows. And she begins to wonder whether perhaps there's clues to that as well, and perhaps she might find him there. The bus to Orsula, the little port from which the ferry sails to Isla Graciosa, spends the first half of its journey meandering through cobbled village streets, sun-dried farmland, and fields filled with dishevelled cacti. When it reaches the last lap of its journey, however, it fairly gallops along the coast as though drawn homeward by the scent of the sea and the sight of distant blue islands. Kicking off her sandals, Selina draws her feet up onto the velvety roughness of the seat, wraps the skirt of her green summer dress tight around her legs, and stares out the window. The bus is going far too fast for her, and as she watches the coastline race past, the knot of excitement that has tingled in the pit of her stomach since early morning turns more and more to one of anxiety. For though the sun shines in a cloudless sky and the sea is picture postcard blue, near the waterline that blue is stretched and thinned into glaucous veils veined with webs of foam over which bright white waves furl. Were it not for the prohibido fumar notice, she would have lit up ages ago. According to the elderly couple from Grimsby in the seat opposite, who every now and then look up from their thermos flask and egg sandwiches to gaze fearfully at the sea, there are 35 miles per hour winds today, and there's distinct possibility the ferry will not sail. If it does sail, the couple from Grimsby do not intend to be on it. And Selina is not at all sure she can bear to be either. To take her mind off the possible horrors to come, she gazes out at the tundra-like landscape and imagines her mother and father driving along this same sea-licked track in a bright red roofless sports car. One hand on the wheel and hair blown in the wind, Imogen watches the breakers on the black rocks which, after centuries of being dashed by waves, still remain resolutely ragged. Every now and then she turns to point something out to Francisco, whose left hand holds his white straw hat while his right rests easily on his wife's shoulders. When she turns, Imogen's words are whipped away by the wind, and he moves closer to catch them. Then he smiles and nods and, pulling her close, whispers through her hair. Bizarre though Selina finds this idea of a young and in love Imogen and Francisco, she begins to imagine what they talked about as they drove. Did Imogen, seeing the distant volcanoes, talk excitedly about what she would paint? And did Francisco talk about what he might paint too? Because, for all Selina knows, he too might have been an artist. Or was he a writer, a poet? Are there somewhere notebooks full of his watercolour sea studies? Or his pirate stories? Or his poems? All inspired by the same wild, rugged desolation that inspired Imogen. He must have done something to pass his days while Imogen painted. Come to that, he must surely, in order to have attracted Imogen in the first place, have had some kind of creative side, even though all traces of him and his work have disappeared. Perhaps the Casa de la Luna Cresciente will reveal something of him.